How do you engage your senior leadership team in safety? This is a question I get asked a lot because it's the biggest challenge and it's also the most critical because getting your senior leadership engaged in safety is probably the biggest and most important way you can impact others and get everybody else doing what you want to do. So here's the challenges for senior leaders. They're working across a lot of issues, so they can't afford to get involved in the detail. Number two, their priorities inevitably are different to yours. They're working at a high level and they're working to secure the company objectives, looking at things like profit, growth, sustainability. So, bigger picture issues. And number three, because of their influential position at the top of the organization, there are a lot of different issues and people, stakeholders competing for their time. So, they need to be really choosy about how they spend their time. So, what is the big need here for you to think about as a health and safety professional? Well, the first thing to keep in mind is that your senior leaders quite often won't realize that they are not getting across how much safety matters to them. It doesn't mean that they're not talking about it, but they don't realize there's a perception gap. So, what they're saying about safety is not the way people are perceiving it. And if they can't close that gap, then when push comes to shove, what's going to happen? Employees are going to choose the operation first because that's what they think that the senior leaders want them to do because of that perception gap. So, number two, what really matters here is not just what they're saying for safety, but also what they're doing and where they're doing it. And often it's the last two that are missing, the what they're doing and where they're doing it. So here's the answer that you need to be aiming for. First of all, you need to make sure your senior leaders are really clear on the key principle they are looking to honour. Is it safety first? Is it safety always? Is it safety as a core value? Is it people first? Is it a culture of care? And then be clear on what behaviours you want them to exhibit to the workforce. And it's maybe one, maximum of three. And then you might even think about having a matrix here where you can show them across their daily activities how this would show up in their choices, actions, and decisions. For example, suggesting to them, instead of saying something like, how much did we get done yesterday? Before they do that, say, how is everyone after yesterday? Because that transmits a different message. And number two, when they have a list of issues to deal with on their desk, think about closing out the safety ones first before the operational ones as much as possible. And the bottom line here is we need to educate senior leaders on how what they do and don't do is perceived and how easily they can make a big impact. And of course, support the important work that you already have in place for health and safety. And they can do that not necessarily with one big effort, but with small everyday decisions and actions that probably don't cost them as much time as they think. And probably they don't realise the obvious that you and I can see that people in their position can make a lot more of a difference than they realise.